Shann, when did you first encounter the term servant leader?
The first time I encountered the term servant leader was when I was hired here at Gonzaga University to teach, and it was a leadership and psychology class, and it was about 15 or 16 years ago. And I knew I needed to find something on leadership since I was trained in psychology. So I went to the library, and actually the first book that showed up was Servant Leadership, and I'm not sure exactly how that came into my hands in the search, but I remember, I think, just finding the title and going, wonder what that's about. And then I started reading that first 40 pages or 45 pages, which ends up being Greenleaf's original essay, and I immediately decided that's the one I want to use for the class. I didn't really look that much further after that, I think because I was intrigued by the philosophy underlying servant leadership.
Many people, once they have heard the term servant leader, in retrospect begin to look at people in their earlier lives who acted as servant leaders for them. I'm wondering if there are one or two stories of people in your life who were servant leaders to you before you had heard the term.
When you say that, I think the first one that comes to mind is my grandma, who loved dancing and who earned the nickname the Great One by all family members. And I think it's because she had a pleasant, joyful, loving spirit and a lot of communal power. She was a central community figure in a town of 8 people in Montana, which is Cohagen, Montana. But that town served the surrounding ranching community in Montana, and she was the postmaster. So she was a different person that had a lot of talents, I think, you know. And so the post office was on the back of her house, and people would come in, and more often than not, she would just invite them further in, right? And they'd end up sitting at the kitchen table and talking, and she always had coffee and all kinds of baked goods ready on the table. And so when I got to see her was every summer when I was a young boy. And her husband, my grandpa, was pretty stern for a lot of years until they realized that these young boys that maybe didn't work hard enough were going to do all right. And then he opened up a little more. And she was pretty openly wonderful to us from the beginning. And I just remember always loving being around her. And there was always some type of good conversational engagement and some type of joy in the air. And then a lot of dancing and a lot of music. And I think the part about her servant leadership that really helped was a person felt safe in her presence and a lot of wisdom in her presence that was natural wisdom, not downloaded into you, but more it just would happen, and you could ask her any question you wanted at different times, and then she'd have a quality answer. And the way she lived her life was with, I think, with just great joy and great respect for others, and a lot of, I don't know if you'd call it easy discipline or something like grace and ease that comes across into a well-lived life. People that have been servant leaders in my life include my grandma, and also my father and my mother, and my father-in-law, and my wife, and each of my 3 kids. So a story about all of them is going to be impossible, but I want to start with a story about my father-in-law. And he had a special way of servant leading people, and still does. And the way that he led me, I think, in the beginning was through a feeling of, it's hard to even phrase it. He leads through power, and you even are afraid of the power at the beginning. And then below the power is an immense amount of love and care. And the power, so in the beginning I think I projected onto that power, oh, this is bad power and this person's going to dominate me or try to dominate me. But very soon I noticed this person isn't about dominance at all. They just happen to be a powerful person. And probably due to various factors in their lives. But one of the things that showed me that was I was in a work setting with him, and one of the female workers had said something. It was a large group setting inside the organization that he was running. And one of the female workers had, talked over him a little bit inside this larger group. And he had said something pretty sharp like, hey, I'm talking here. And the person just quieted down and the work went on. But after that meeting was done, that person, I happened to be still seated over off to the side, And that person went over directly to him and said, during that meeting, you offended me. You said something rude to me, and I felt embarrassed. So here's a worker talking to the CEO like that. And in my own interpersonal way of looking at work, I was thinking, wow, that takes a lot of bravery to talk to the to talk to the CEO like that, and it's probably not going to go well, is what I was thinking in my head. And his response to that person was, you're right, that was totally wrong of me, and I apologize for doing that, and I would like to ask your forgiveness. And they had a really nice conversation coming out of that. And I thought, that's a lot different than what I'm used to in leadership. Now, that was one intriguing element of it, and a second element came in where the rest of us had dispersed kind of across the building, the organization that we're in. And I was just maybe 25 minutes later, and he comes walking up to me, and he says, hey, do you remember when I was sharp with so-and-so in the meeting? And yeah, I do. And, well, that was wrong of me. That's not how I want to handle things. And I'd like to apologize to you. I'd like to ask your forgiveness for that. So there's a lot of different types of thought that were hitting me just being around him that I had not been used to at all, such as people in power being willing to admit their own weaknesses, people in power being able to listen well to when other people bring them a problem or a difficulty, and then people in power finding a really nice resolution that can lead to a deeper place. And without saying, okay, now everybody, this is how we should do it, I think it was really helped everybody think about what to do with their own weaknesses, and when something comes up as a problem, it helped just embed a certain type of culture. It was one of the many things. So that would be another story about a servant leader. And then I think another one is just through my children. I just get a lot of servant leading through them, just their beautiful responses. And so I'll just tell one of those. I was with my youngest, my 5-year-old Isabella, and asking her, hey, Bella, and I had my hands on her face, and I was looking into her eyes, Bella, why do you think I love you so much, was the question. And, she just simply looked up and looked at my eyes and said, because God made you to love me. So, good answer. They servant lead me all the time.